Hello, very super puffy Jen has come to the internet today to talk about the films I watched during July, August and September. I've already talked about the TV shows over on my tic-tac-toe on my TikTok, which is always linked in the description if you're interested. But for today's video, as I say, it is going over the films. So of course, kicking it off with July, I watched two movies in July, one an older release, one a very new release. The first one was Shawshank Redemption. I had literally just read the book and I wanted to kind of see how the movie compared, any differences, comparabilities, that sort of thing. The movie I ended up giving a 4 out of 5 stars, and it wasn't a completely faithful adaptation, but the liberties that were taken to change parts of the story I feel worked for the movie to make sense in a less like convoluted way, because with the book, although I enjoyed it, there was a lot of convoluted like layers to it that I think for a film probably just would have not flowed as smoothly or got to the point quick enough for, you know, a recommended viewing time. It was enjoyable to see the displays and friendships that I loved from the book acted out on the screen, and overall I thought it was a solid, well done movie. The new release I watched in July was of course Barbie, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. I just thought this was absolutely fabulous. Not only did it have a stellar cast and amazing soundtrack, the storyline was completely inspirational with an abundance of depth that begged the questions of what it means to be a woman, and on an even wider scale, what is our purpose in humanity, really, in the world. Not only was I laughing out loud, you know, multiple times throughout this viewing, I was on the verge of tears equally the same amount of times, and I just had so many moments to just sit there and reflect, you know, just think about what the story was telling the audience and, you know, the deeper undertones of it. I think this has probably got to be one of the best movies from the second half of the year, whilst being a strong contender of being one of the best movies of the full year entirely. I absolutely adored this one, 5 out of 5 stars. In August I watched 4 movies. One of them particularly was a new release that I was pretty looking forward to, and we're starting off with that one. That is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Basically this geezer's got a furry kink and he went under extreme lengths to keep that under wrap. I don't know, but no, seriously, I'm glad I didn't see this one in the cinema because shit was distressing as fuck. It had me bawling the house down, and I just could not contain the brutality that was done to Rocket and his friends. It was Rocket's origin stories, basically. Yeah, my gosh, it was such a powerful movie, deep commentary on animal testing, the cruelty of people, but on the flip side, the beauty that can be found within humanity when people just come together to support the ones they love and care for. I thought it was an emotional end to the Guardians of the Galaxy films. After that, I checked out a film called Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, which I gave a 2.5 out of 5 stars. This was wacky and fun, honestly. I enjoyed it much more until this random Junji Ito vibes near the end. I love Junji Ito, but that kind of vibe did not work for the movie. It just got too crazy. It also felt very anime-y for a live action. I think there's an original anime version, but to like translate that into live action, it just didn't flow very well. Next up, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I wanted to watch this when this came out actually, and I kind of forgot about it for a while, but then I saw it was on Prime, decided to watch it. This one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It's such a weird and funny film. Like, it did get some good jump scares from me, but it was overall just a really odd little dark comedy that left me rolling my eyes a lot of the time, but also in the best way. I don't know. I guess I'm glad that I didn't spend, you know, cinema equivalent money going to the movies, but I still liked it, if you know what I mean. It's just very quirky and different. Next up, another newer release, Evil Dead Rises, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was really scary. It's been so long since I had to turn away from horror and hide my eyes, but this movie did that to me. I was reduced to a trembling child. Like, I was terrified at some of those scenes. I liked that it jumped straight into it as well. Like, there was no really preamble, but you didn't feel lost within the story, which kind of killed some of that anticipation for me, because my body knew what to expect and I didn't get that sicky intense feeling, which I hate. So in a way it was kind of a good and a bad thing. Like, the anticipation of the movie was bad because it misses out on that ambiance, you know, but at the same time, for my body reacting to fear, I didn't get that oh my god I'm gonna feel sick feeling, which I hate. But yeah, I really enjoyed the actors as well. Fabulous. Before I go on to September, I want to quickly mention a special mention. This is Shape of Water. This is a rewatch for me, and I gave it 5 stars, which I'm pretty sure I gave the first time I watched it. Just updating really to say I finally recognised the little Easter eggs referring to the actors' other movies and Del Toro's other movies as well, which gave me a greater appreciation. This is my partner's first time watching it and he thought it was a bit strange, but I think overall he liked it, and he was able to point out some of the things because he'd watched quite a lot more of things like Hellboy and stuff like that, and was able to be like, hey, that's from that, and I was like, oh, interesting. So yeah, it was a educational viewing for me, I would say. Okay, and then rounding everything up in September, I watched 3 movies, and the final one was a new release to the month. So going back in time, I watched Star Wars Revenge of the Sith episode 3, and this one, I guess I didn't give a rating, but it was by far my favourite. I'd probably maybe give it like a 4 stars or so. The direction of the plot just took on such a significant twist in the story, and I was screaming at the screen knowing about Anakin. Like, I don't know how I went so long in my life. I know I've only really just started watching the Star Wars movie. How have I gone so long in my life not making the connection and realising? And my partner kept that quiet too. Either he's just outwardly spoken about Anakin and like everything surrounding him, and I've just, where have I been? How have I just not, I was mind blown basically by that whole movie. I just thought it was fantastic. I thought it was such a good film. Following on from that, I watched a movie that I've had in my recordings on the telly for ages, and we're getting rid of the telly, like as in like the channels and stuff, so I needed to kind of watch what I wanted to watch quickly. This was The Others. This was recommended by a colleague at work a good few years ago now, when I was in my previous job actually. This one's kind of like a haunted house kind of story, following a mum and her 2 young children. I think the meandering gothic atmosphere would have been best suited to me if I'd have read it, but for a movie it just was lacking some excitement and intriguing, which lent it to being a little bit dull for quite a lot of the duration. It really had all the requirements that I love to read about in gothic literature, like Rebecca, Wuthering Heights, things of that nature, but as a movie it was just, as you know, as I say, a bit dull, and I still liked it, but it didn't have a lot of oomph to it. But that ending was absolutely fantastic. I think it was all worth it just to get to that point, and it definitely, for me anyway, bumped up the whole viewing experience a little bit extra. I just really wasn't expecting that twist, and I thought it was a fantastic one. And then finally, for this quarter and for September in general, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, new release in the cinema, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed the rallying together of everyone and the different dynamic they had with the family in April in comparison to the, I want to say it's the original TV show, but I know they've had so many reboots and I can't remember the year the one I'm thinking of came out. But the one that I grew up with, well, mainly my brother grew up with, but I was there in the background kind of tuning in. It was an interesting variant in family dynamic, you know. It was corny a lot of the times, but it also kind of worked for it. I really loved all the geeky references, and the music felt classic to the time the originals were airing. The art style wasn't my favourite, but it definitely grew on me, and I think it just worked for the vibe of this movie. And it also overall kind of gave me Miles Morales kind of vibes. Just the whole feel of it kind of was reminiscent of that. Anyway, that is it for the movies I watched during July, August and September. Let me know what you've been checking out, what you'd recommend, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you in another video soon. Bye.